In this section, I want to talk about healthy sexual development and how you, as youth-serving professionals, can improve your ability to service these sensitive issues. Now, have you ever wondered why young people you work with ask so many questions about all sorts of things? I'm a sexuality educator, and the kind of questions that I hear are things like this. Why do I have acne? Why do I wake up with my penis erect every morning? Will I get my period, and does that mean I'll stop growing? What if I'm not attracted to boys or girls? And does love always have to equal sex? Is it normal to think about sex all the time? Why am I so flat-chested when all of my friends are wearing bras? And where did I come from? Now that last one, let me tell you, as a sexuality educator, that's the one that so many parents and professionals fear. Because they're worried, like, am I going to have the right information? Am I going to say it correctly? Am I going to give too much information? And sometimes we get lost in the question. So one thing I want you to remember is I've been teaching this work for a while now, and sometimes parents start answering the question, where did I come from? By talking about intercourse and penises and vagina and sperm and eggs, and you can see, like, from where I am now, they're getting more and more excited, and not excited, but more and more nervous and kind of flustered. But what I'd like to suggest is, if a teenager or an adolescent or any young person asks you, where did I come from, ask them a follow-up question first. Say, what do you mean by that? Because sometimes all that kid means is, what country did our people come from? Are we from Jamaica? Are we from Croatia? I don't really understand it. So I think that's a light example, but it is an example of something that sometimes we get mixed up about. And I just want to say that there's all sorts of areas of sexuality that kids are going to ask about. There's the body, right? All about the body, like, what about touch and physical closeness and physiological or psychological changes? And then what about intimacy? Intimacy is the ability and the need to experience closeness and connection of all forms, both friendships and also sexual relationships. And then there's gender and sexual identity. And that whole realm is something that kids are really starting to ask more and more questions about, which is fantastic. But they're about, who am I? And do I fit into any of those prescriptive roles, like male, female, boy, girl? Maybe I don't feel like I'm any. Maybe I feel like I'm really non-binary. And who am I attracted to? Boys, girls, maybe neither. What does that mean for me? So am I, the term LGBT, am I lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, asexual? It goes on and on. You can imagine there's so many different ways. We call it now a continuum of sexual orientation. And gender identity is very similar. And then there's the whole area of sexual health and reproduction, like, where did I come from? But really it's about attitudes and behaviors, responses. How do I treat my own sexual health? How do I make sure that I'm keeping myself of an optimum health, so that there are no health consequences of my sexual behavior? That also includes reproduction and contraception, of course. And finally, and this is an area that, out of all these circles of sexuality that I've just enumerated on the body and intimacy and gender and sexual health and reproduction, the one that you know probably the most about is what we call sexualization, or the forced manner of non-mutual or non-mutually agreed upon sexual behavior. And it could be that which is used to manipulate or control other people. Now, young children have a lot of curiosity, but teenagers don't differ from that. Teenagers have a lot of curiosity, plus they're kind of awkward, and they're experimenting for pleasure. So when you're working with young people, remember that curiosity is often the beginning, but awkwardness can also be in there and can be a kind of a mediating factor. And if you're a youth serving professional, there's 3 ways that you can really improve your ability to help young adults with their own sexual development. And they are, ready for this? Knowledge. I'll explain all these in a minute. Skills and attitudes. So let's start with knowledge. Many of us feel like we don't have enough knowledge. We can't answer the question, so why should we even begin to bring up the topic? Well, the kids are interested in the topic. And you don't have to know all the answers. In fact, you can very easily say, great question. I don't know. Let's look it up. And there's lots of great resources. And I'll make sure that I give Neri the resources that I trust, that are credible resources for young adults, including one website that is co-authored by young people and sexuality educators. It's really well done and is in a language that I think young people really communicate in. So don't be afraid of the questions about information just because you may not know it all. It's really okay. But most importantly, if you say you don't know, make sure you get back to that young person because they're going to be watching for that. They're going to see if you are a quote-unquote askable adult. Okay, the second is skills. Now, you know that it takes a while to learn how to play an instrument or drive a car or do any new sport. It also takes a while to feel less nervous or awkward yourself when you're talking about sex. Unfortunately, we live in a very bifurcated world where you know this better than most people if you're working with young adults. Your ability to talk about sex in an honest and authentic way is always kind of pushed to the side when people are trying to sell you products and influence you by way of using sex and sexual material. And so I'd like to say that the skill you need to develop is one that we all need to develop because most of us don't really have much experience talking about sex in an honest and frank and truly in a person-to-person way. All the adolescents and young people you come into contact with are unique individuals, and they may be from very different cultures, racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, sexual or gender orientations. And I want to make sure that you understand that each one of those young people you interact with is going to ask you questions in their own way. And so developing your skill will be really helpful. So here's one trick. Next time you're driving in your car alone, only do this when you're alone. And only when you have the windows rolled up. Shout out the word masturbation really loud. Or the word vulva or penis or testicles. A word that may be something that you would never say in public. But just get yourself used to saying some of these words because it really will be helpful. Okay, third one, and really to me it's the most important, next to knowledge and skills, is attitudes. Be an askable adult, just like I said before. Be someone who a young person would be willing to take a risk because it takes courage to ask adults about sex. It's scary. Be that person who's askable and also willing to be in there with that young person through their difficult and awkward and curious stages. Because if you're available to be asked, then a conversation can continue and then a deeper relationship can evolve. If you're interested in any more of these issues, I'd be delighted to talk with you. I'm always happy to hear from people who are doing the really amazing work and keep on doing the good work you're doing to keep young people and all of us safe and healthy.